Hello. There are some financial astrologers who use the zodiac sign of the North Node to determine what house prices will be. And I recently made a series of videos on the price of houses, and I predicted the price using particular midpoint structures. And so a few people have asked me, does the zodiac sign of the North Node also help indicate the price of houses? Could that be combined with these midpoint things? Would it be helpful? So I decided to find out. So I'm going to show you how I find out and what I discovered about whether the zodiac sign of the North Node is an indicator of house prices. Here in the title I call it Rahu. As you know, Rahu is another name for the North Node. So as I showed in the two videos on predicting the price of houses, here is the price of houses in the United States from 1953 to 2021. The orange line is corrected for inflation, so it's a good indicator of the actual cost to an individual. And the idea is, can we find some astrological formula that would predict and match this graph? So what I did is I went into the series software and I gave points to the position of the North Node. I used the true node, and here it abbreviates true node as TNO. As you know, there's a mean node and a true node. And for our purposes, it won't make any difference because the difference between the mean node and true node is up to about 2 degrees. So for the long-term cycles, it won't, it only shift a month or so when the node changes signs, and as you'll see, that won't affect the graph. So it really doesn't matter. I just always use the true node. And the idea is that when the North Node is in Cancer, then house prices are high. And what I did here is I gave 36 points to the node in Cancer. And then as we move one sign away from Cancer, I go down 3 points. So Gemini and Leo get 30 points, and Taurus and Virgo get 24 points, and so on. And you'll end up with Capricorn getting 0 points. So why did I pick a range of 0 to 36 points, and to do that separate the number of points between two consecutive zodiac signs by 6? I'm going up 0, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. Why that? Because the scores, according to the formula based on midpoints, go from 0 to up in the 30s. So I wanted a similar range. By having a similar range for the nodes, it's giving equal strength. In other words, the nodes just by themselves, when the North Node is in Cancer, is going to reach a peak of 36. When it's in Capricorn, it'll have 0. And that happened to be the range of points. It just worked out that way based on the midpoint structures, as you can see here. Now what I have here is 4 graphs. So I will show this to you, one at a time, and let's see what's going on. These graphs are going to show us they will show us whether the nodes in this, North Node and zodiac signs, whether that is going to help us predict the price of houses. And by the way, before I get into this, let me just show you quickly to make sure you understand is if I'm in the Sirius software and I go to forecast and I go to electional forecast, and I happen to put it here under main forecast. I made a forecast, Uranus, Neptune midpoints, second revision. I kept revising it and improving it, and plus the nodal cycle. That's just a title I gave for it. And if we go to customize and we look at the transit to transit, we see the formula that I came up with. We call it an AstroSignature. We see the AstroSignature based on the midpoint structures, and I explain all this in the previous videos on predicting the price of houses. And I added these 12 lines to the bottom which I just showed you in that slide in PowerPoint, for the strength of the node in the zodiac signs. So there it is. So I just want to confirm how what it is I did in the software. I'm just going to cancel out of this and okay, fine. Let's see if the true node in zodiac signs helps us determine the price of houses. Does it work for the data we have from 1953 to 2021? And I was very curious about this because I don't know, maybe it works. And if it does, that will be fantastic. It'll improve our formula. So the orange line, again, that's the actual price of houses. And it has those 3 peaks here, what is it, around 1979, 1988, and then peaking, a big peak here in around 2006, and coming down, and then the prices now are going up, 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 up. Well, this stairway kind of thing is the north node in the zodiac signs. In 1964, the north node was in Cancer. This is tropical Cancer, so it's getting the full 36 points. You'll see that this scale, you may not be able to read it on your screen if it looks small, but it's going from 0 to 35 plus another little bit. It's going from 0 to 36. And each one of these little stairways up goes up to 6 points. So there it is. There's the cycle, about 18.5-year cycle that it takes the north node to go through the zodiac signs. So if we just use the zodiac signs of the nodes, does it work? Well, it said there would be a peak here around 1964. It was flat. That didn't work very well. There's actually a tiny bump here right where it says it will be low. And then there's this peak, but it peaks a little bit later. The zodiac sign, the north node is in Cancer, a little bit after this peak. Not great. And the actual high here is not matching very well with the prediction. So overall, it really doesn't look like the north node in the zodiac signs is a very good predictor. The main thing is that over the last few years, it's matched perfectly. So if you only look at, 2011 or so up to 2020, well, last 10 years, it's pretty good. Last 10 years, it's matched perfectly. Now, maybe the motivation for people to buy houses is now different from it was in the past. If you make an argument like that, then you could say, well, the current predictor for house prices is the north node, the sign of the north node. But, that's assuming there's some kind of radical change in the motivation, reasons, and the forces that change house prices. I don't know if there's some argument that can be made for that or not, but that would be the only way because it really doesn't work that well. Now, over here in the second graph is just to remind us of the forecast based on midpoints. So this second graph, second from the top, does not use the nodes at all. That's the forecast that I made based on the midpoints. And just to review quickly, we see this first major peak here, and it peaks the predicted prices, which is the blue, matches reasonably well. The blue peaks a little bit after this actual peak, but not terrible. And then this one has the one big error right in here where we predicted a low around 2004, right when it peaks. So, it looks good, it's going up, and over here it looks good, but there's a period of a few years where the forecast is not very good, and then this continues to go up. So overall, this is a pretty good match. It's matching way better than the node in the signs. Not perfect, it's got that one glaring mistake, but, as I mentioned in the previous videos, given the fact that I only worked on this, for a few weeks, and I just stopped, and I gave ways to improve it. Given how much work was put into it, it's very good forecast, and it's based on a consistent idea. Now, the third graph combines the two. It's combining the zodiac sign, which has these 1, 2, 3, 4 waves, and you see the 4 waves, and this combines the two graphs. This is produced by the AstroSignature I just showed you, where I added the 12 lines, one line for each zodiac sign, to the existing formula based on midpoints. The first one is just the 12 lines, just the north node in the 12 signs. Second one is just the midpoints. Third one is the combination. Now, how does it do? First few years, not very well. I've got not as good as just midpoints. If I use just midpoints, the second graph, it's staying closer to the orange line. This here, second area around the 80s, also not very good, because if I use just midpoints, I've got a nice peak matching pretty well. The third peak, however, is good, coming down, coming up here. Then in recent years, it works very well. Looks like it works maybe a little bit better than just the midpoints, coming down, and then this matches perfectly. So I would say some of it is worse than only the midpoints. Some of it is better than only the midpoints. So we've added a whole new idea of the node in signs, and it's not overall helping. So I tried one more thing, which is instead of giving up to 36 points for the north node in the signs, I gave it far fewer points. In fact, that's what we saw a second ago. Let me go back in there just to show it to you. If I go to forecast, electional forecast, main forecast, and I select this new forecast that I made, and I go to the customize, transit to transit, and scroll down, it only goes to a maximum of 12. So I'm giving 2 points. So I've got 0. If you can't read it, what this says is transiting true node in Capricorn is 0. And for the 2 signs surrounding Capricorn, which of course is Sagittarius and Aquarius, I'm giving it 2 points. So I'm going up by 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 for Cancer, and then back down. 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, back to 0. So I'm giving it only 2 points. What this does is it means when the north node is in, let's go back to the slide, when the north node is in Cancer, which would be the case over here around 1964, instead of getting 36 points and pushing the graph way up, like in this third graph, this peak around 1964, predicted peak, is going up to 50 points. With just the midpoints, at that time, it's going up to about 15 points. So it's jumped it from 15 to 45. It's added, 36 points for the north node in Cancer. And here I'm giving only 12 points. So the fourth graph is, let me repeat this, fourth graph combines the midpoints with the sign of the nodes, but giving less power to the nodes, with the idea that maybe the midpoints are more powerful, more important for predicting the price of houses, and give the nodes less weight, only up to 12 points. This is the beauty of these astrosignatures. You can weight each variable. And now in the fourth graph, we don't get as clear and simple and obvious 4 waves. I mean, you still have them, but the first wave now, compare the third and fourth. First wave goes up only a little bit instead of a lot. Second wave still goes up a lot. Third wave not as much, and so on. So let's compare the second graph, which is midpoints only, with the fourth graph, which is midpoints plus nodes, and giving less emphasis to nodes than we give to the midpoints. So the first part, I would say it's about the same, maybe slightly worse for having the the signs of the node. You know, in the second graph, the orange is kind of going through all these, pretty level here. We've got that slight peak, but it's not much worse. And then this second part where using the midpoints in the second graph, it's going up and then back down. It's looking pretty much the same. I'm noticing the gap between the orange line and the blue line here is small. Here in the fourth one, it's gotten bigger. So giving all those points to the North Node in Cancer, North Node was in Cancer right in this time period around 1979, 1980, it's made the fit worse. I want the blue line to be as close to the orange line as possible. So, you know, it's not helping a whole lot, but when I get down here, adding the sign of the North Node fits better. So here we're getting an improvement. Look at this in the fourth graph. It's going up, 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 sitting right on the orange. Perfect match. Whereas up in the second graph, it's too low. Then I've got this the big error, the big area where the midpoints did not work. And that looks maybe a little bit better. I still got a gap here. And then this blue sits right on the orange line. Better. So, you know, for first half of the graph, I think adding the zodiac sign of the true node made the forecast worse. For the second half, it made it better. You know, a little bit worse for the first half, a little bit better for the second half. It's kind of a toss-up. So adding the North Node is not overall making a clear improvement. And we use Occam's razor. You've probably heard about Occam's razor, which is if you add something to your theory or to your formula and you get about equivalent results, then don't use it. Use the simpler formula. That's Occam's razor. It works very well because the idea is, why add all this complicated stuff if it's not helping? Only add it if it helps. So based on that, I would say we will leave out the sign of the true node. We'll just say it's not helping our model. And the way I like to think of things is we're building models. Is the model improved or not? I would say, you know, no, it's not. We'll leave it out, but we're not going to ignore it completely because this match in the last half is so good. So, you know, it's not 100% clear cut. What is clear cut is that the midpoint graph matches. Adding in the node doesn't seem to help. So here's what I would say. 10 years from now, if the price of houses follows the second graph based on midpoints better than it does with midpoints with the sign of the nodes, that's strong evidence signs of the nodes is not helping. If the next 10 years matches the prediction based on the fourth graph where we've given up to 12 points, 12 maximum points for nodes in the signs, then that's a strong indication that the sign of the nodes helps. So there it is. That's how you can tell. You just add it to the AstroSignature. I've also shown how changing the weighting affects things. And by the way, on the subject of changing the weightings, if I wanted to spend more time improving this graph, here's an example of something you can do. Look at the second graph. And where this peak is too high, I look at the midpoint structures that are occurring at this time. You just produce the graph, and when you produce the graph, it gives you a list of exactly what's happening. And I look at this extreme peak right here where it goes over 30 points. It's the only time during the whole time range where it goes way over 30 points. There's a second time close by where it hits the 30 points. This says 30 over here, this dashed horizontal line. Right here and this other one, all these peaks right up here, I look at the midpoint structures and I think to myself, is it reasonable to lower the number of points given to whatever those midpoint structures are? And if necessary, lower other midpoint structures so that we have a nice, clean, elegant formula. I talked about that in the two videos on predicting house prices with the midpoint structures. I see if I can lower those. Well, I certainly can. I will lower them. Now, maybe these midpoint structures are also occurring here in recent years, and by lowering them here, it's going to make it not fit here. Or maybe they're not occurring in these other places. We don't know, and we don't even have to look. We can look ahead of time if we want to, but usually what I do is I just lower those. That will bring this peak that's too high down. And then the effect that it makes is that, relatively speaking, these other peaks go up. That will raise, it'll probably raise, if it doesn't involve the same midpoints, some of these other things. Anyway, the whole graph changes. When you change one part, the peaks and valleys get modified. It doesn't change it radically. It's just like, it's like waves. Some waves don't go up quite as high as they did before, and some go up more, and there may be a sudden flatness where there was a little bit of a peak. It'll just change modestly. And that's a way of playing around with lowering these. And sometimes, oh my, you really hit gold. You lower these, and then that flattens right down to here, and everything else moves up, and the whole thing just matches much better. It's because it takes, I think it takes way over an hour. I didn't even time it because I work on other things while it's running. It's slow because every time you modify the points, you have to rerun it, and it takes a long time to run. And, I've got other research, other projects, other videos, all kinds of other things I want to do. So I'm not going to, perseverate on this project. If you're really deep into financial astrology and you're an investor and you consult people on their investments, I don't do any of that stuff. So it's not part of my specialization. But if it is for you, it could be worth your time to do that. Go in and improve this formula and see what will help. And this is an example to show you what happens. Here we tried the idea of the true node signs. And for consulting people now, I would not use the true node sign. I would just go right back to the original. 10 years from now, if we find out it helps, okay, we add it. But right now, I would definitely leave it out because Occam's razor, we don't want to start throwing things into our formula that are not helping. Okay, so I wanted to show that to you for two reasons. Number one, to answer this question, do the zodiac signs of the nodes work? And the answer is, based on what we have right now, no. But we're still looking at it for the future. We might bring it back. Like I said, 10 years from now, we'll see. So it's like a no, but not a complete rejection. We're going to keep it on hold, for possible future use. Okay, so that's it. And also just emphasizing how you go about, what you do to make these things match. You're taking your formula and adapting it to fit the actual prices and trying to make your formula elegant. And the beauty of this, as we found with the, for example, the bipolar research, is the astrology really works. After a while, you make a nice, elegant formula, you collect new data, and it will match. I think we're really actually discovering things. That's the big question. Are we just fitting data to, we're just matching things up and stumbling on things, or are we really finding things? Well, we're really finding things. We're astrologers. We know there's something going on with astrology, and it ends up that it works exceptionally well. Okay. That's it, my friends. Thank you very much for listening. God bless. Namaste.